on this episode of Postcards.
Once you know how to use a chainsaw, it's a tool that you can use forever just on many random things. It's pretty unique.
I think painting has been kind of the mainstay in my life ever since I started.
The light and the wind, I mean, that's the essence of the prairie. It's simple stuff, but it's beautiful stuff.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflection Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.
When I first went out to Alaska, I was 16 years old. My brother was 18. He just graduated from high school. So I went out there for a couple weeks and learned how to carve underneath Scott Hansen, and my brother was also teaching me at the same time because he had learned from Scott Hansen. And after a couple of years of working out in Alaska, we decided to go out to the Black Hills and start up our own business. So I was 19 when I started up a business in Keystone. Me and my brother both started it, but then he ended up going back to Alaska for one more season out there. So I was in Keystone on my own, starting the business, and it went really well in the Black Hills. So my brother ended up coming out there the next year, and now we've been carving out there ever since, and that was about 8 years ago. It gets to be very competitive, which is even more fun because I get to see things that he carves and it amazes me, so then I try it and I find out that I can carve more than I knew I could at that time. But it's just, he pushes me to another level and I enjoy that. Just seeing other people's carvings kind of makes me want to carve even harder and be a better carver. The reason I carve the turtles is because I have a son and he really enjoys watching turtles. He watches them every morning, and I grew up watching turtles also. So every day he's kind of told me I should carve turtles. So I said, yeah, I might as well. So I carved a smaller turtle. And I thought, well, it'd be kind of unique to carve maybe 7-footers, all 4 of them. And then I could put them at the shop and people could come and take pictures with them. They're not really for sale, they're just kind of entertainment for kids to stop by and take pictures with. And it was fun to do because it's something different. I haven't seen anyone carve them before, so I thought it was kind of cool. hopefully I can teach my son how to carve. I think he has a little toy chainsaw right now, and he always tries to carve, and he always tells me what I should carve. So it's kind of fun to teach him and let him be around the carving aspect, and he has a lot of fun with it. He comes down here every day with me. It's a lot of fun. Well, I use a chainsaw to block out most of the wood. You can really take away a lot of wood fast with a chainsaw. And I use all different sizes. You go up to a 3-foot bar all the way down to a 12-inch bar. And the 12-inch bar is more for the detail work. And then after that, you take a grinder and you kind of grind off as much as you can to make it smooth. And then you come with a Dremel for the details and like the face. So being able to travel to Alaska and to be around other carvers like Scott and my brother, it was a fun journey because we were on our own. Scott kind of became like a second dad to me because I was only 16 and 17 when I was in Alaska. So it was quite the experience because when we'd run out of logs, then just me and my brother would have to go out into the woods and cut them down. And it was kind of fun to us because at that time we were so in love with carving, I guess, that we would just carve little branches as we were cutting down trees because it was just fun to us. After traveling to Alaska then, when we went out to the Black Hills, I guess starting our own business, you really learn a lot about what's out there, and you meet so many cool people, and you get to hear so many different stories from so many unique people, and it's just a lot of fun to be around people that you don't know, and every single day you hear a story that kind of inspires you and kind of keeps you going about, you know, we do have a good life here, and there's so many other stories that people have that kind of push us to be better people ourselves. So it's a lot of fun. It's been quite the journey, and I hope the future goes just as well as the past has. Now I can come home to Minnesota. I have a family here, so now I can have someone actually manage the shop in Hill City, so I can carve more at home now and actually go back and forth, so I can carve around my family. So that's really nice to be home and carving, and then I can also go out there for a couple weeks at a time and travel back and forth. Once you know how to use a chainsaw, it's a tool that you can use forever, just on many random things. It's pretty unique.
You know you can watch postcards on your TV, but did you also know you can watch postcards and other Pioneer shows anywhere, anytime using Pioneer On Demand at video.pioneer.org.
My name's Dan Monlock, and I'm a third-generation landscape painter. So my dad and my great-grandpa were both painters, and lately I've been doing a lot of plein air painting, which means outdoor painting. and we are out at the Corey Park in St. Cloud, White Park actually, today to do a little painting on scene. There are a lot of challenges with outdoor painting that you wouldn't experience in your studio. It requires a little bit different set of equipment, and so I've got a portable easel and a different palette, but that's stuff that you can buy pretty easily. I think the main challenge is that you're out here and you have a shorter window to actually paint in, so it's about 2 to 3 hours in the light switches, and so you've got a very short window to do your best to capture the scene, and besides the bugs and the sunlight and the different weather conditions that can be out there, that's kind of the trickiest part. I started painting when I was in the 9th grade, and I remember driving with my dad one day, and he's an artist, and just saying that I would kind of like to start painting. And I don't know why I had that feeling, I just wanted to start, and he didn't really say much, but then I woke up the next day and laid out on the kitchen table was everything I could ever possibly need to paint a picture, all laid out for me, and so I started painting, and I haven't stopped since. I think painting has been kind of the mainstay in my life ever since I started, so no matter what else has been going on, painting's kind of always been there. If not at the forefront like it is kind of now, it's always been in the background. So. What I like to paint most is landscape, and that varies kind of depending on where I am. So as I'm painting more and more, I'm able to travel a little bit more. So I'm going to places like the North Shore, or a month ago I was at the Plein Air Convention out in Monterey, California. So I'm out there and I'm painting on location like we are for this video, but I'm also gathering reference material, so taking a lot of photographs and painting. So I used to paint more and more of just like what we see behind us, which is more pristine nature, and there's really very little sign of human involvement with that. And I still really love doing that, but lately I've been trying to also see where the overlap is between people and the environment, and including things like buildings or going right into downtown St. Cloud and painting. So it's varying, but I think the scene or the landscape is kind of always priority. So I think that's kind of cool, though, to wherever you are, to be able to paint that scene as it is. It's an architectural history project, so I painted 8 historically significant buildings in downtown St. Cloud. So there's places like the courthouse, and there's a couple of old theaters, and an old church, St. Mary's, which I've been painting a lot recently from the Lake George area downtown. So it was intended as a way to preserve the architecturally significant buildings through a painting, and also to be able to promote that art form too. I really enjoy being out here, and I love to paint out here. These were mined 50 to 100 years ago, and since then they've filled up with water, and so they create this like incredibly scenic, almost like a Northwoods Boundary Water type of atmosphere in the St. Cloud, Central Minnesota area. And I just think that it's really different, from a different scene from the farmland that's pretty prevalent, and the like hardwood deciduous forest that's common around here. So it feels different, which is really kind of fun to paint. It's very scenic, and I just think it's kind of a cool treasure for this area. The process that I use when I'm painting on location like this is I'll set up all my equipment and my easel, and after I find the right place that I want to paint. And usually I'm looking for something that's a very simple subject matter, so nothing that's overly complicated. I like to find something very simple because I know that as an artist I'm going to complicate it during the process, so I like to start out as simple as possible. I'll set up my gear and then I'll do what's called a value sketch. So I'll try and reduce what I'm looking at into 3 basic values: light, medium, and dark. And once I have the value sketch done, then I'll sketch out my subject again on watercolor paper, a little bit larger, and then I will do the painting in that same process: light, middle, medium value, and dark value. And that's pretty much it. That's the process. It usually takes about 2 hours, which is good because that's kind of your window before the light changes significantly and you're really looking at a totally different scene than when you started. So it goes pretty quick, but having those 3 values really helps simplify not only the subject but how you go about painting it. There are a lot of landscape painters, there's a lot of watercolorists out there. I think plein air watercolorists in general, outdoor watercolor painters, are a little bit more rare. One thing that sets my work apart is that I like to use a lot of contrast, so I'm using rich color, very dark darks, a lot of contrast, and on top of that I'm using what's called gouache, which is an opaque watercolor. And so that just has a slightly different look in the end. I'm able to go over the top of dark colors with light colors and kind of amp up the excitement and the color and the contrast in the picture. If I had to give a conclusion about my career as an artist, I would say it's still learning. I've been painting for 17, 18 years, so I feel like I have a good grasp of what I'm doing, but I think the more that I paint, the more that I realize it is a journey. It's like you're constantly learning every time that you sit down to paint, and it's sort of like every time kind of feels like the first time in a sense, because it's always challenging no matter where your technical abilities are at, and that's the exciting part, I think, for me. So it's that challenge of depicting something as best you can is what keeps me coming back.
Have an idea for postcards? Send your story suggestions to postcards@pioneer.org.
I think a lot of this started back in 1997 when we had the big floods over the prairie. And a friend of mine was at a small weekly newspaper at the time. He came into the office and he was going to fly over the prairie to look at where the flood was coming from. And although I'd lived on a prairie at that time for like 5 or 6 years, I had no idea what it had looked like before. Obviously, I don't think anybody alive today really does. And at that time, flying over is just like there's wetlands or sloughs or whatever people want to call them everywhere. I mean, in every section there's like 4 or 5 wetlands. It's like, wow, what is all this? And so that was what opened my eyes to the fact that there was something here that's now been dismissed. And through the years I've learned that like there's only 1% of the prairie left. 99% of it has been destroyed or altered, I guess would be a better word. into basically cropland and stuff like that. And it's, if you look at worldwide, this is the largest ecosystem that has been altered anywhere in the world. It's bigger than a rainforest. It's bigger than anything else, and it goes from basically the middle of Canada all the way down to Texas. And all this has been converted into cropland. And so much of it was broken in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So basically the people who would have known what the prairie looked like originally, they're no longer with us. And so I don't think anyone can really grasp what it really looks like, because it doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, back to my photography, the reason I got involved in this was to start showing myself and others what, just going into the remnants of prairie that are, hidden here and there around the countryside, and trying to photograph what it looked like, just to show people what the prairie, the beauty of what the prairie was like. And it takes a little bit of time, because you have to get past the depth of the grasses. Because if you just look at the grasses, you look out across the prairie, what the remnants, you can get bored. People can get bored pretty quickly. So you have to really get past the grasses, if you will, to see what you're looking for. Today we stopped at one of our prairies near here, the Clinton Prairie, to look for some prairie smoke, which about a week ago, before the latest heat spell, was just coming into its own. It's just, the fluffiness and the new buds and stuff like that. And today we found just a little piece of it, a little stem of it. There's not much of it left. There's a few strands coming up from there, and there's some of this stuff, but it's pretty well past the season. And that's sort of what happens in the prairie land. I guess what really got me started in the photography side of it, we had I planted a small prairie in my backyard in Clara City, and I went out in the early morning, before we go to work, and just walked through there, and I was just totally amazed at what some of the flowers look like. It was just like, boy, this is some really interesting stuff in the prairie if you can find it, if you look for it, if you get past the grasses. I'd like to shoot through stuff, and if the wind is blowing on the prairie, that's even better, because it makes it look more like what the image I want to show. And so I get a lot of my images have a lot of softness in it, and that's usually from the weaving of the prairie grasses that I'm shooting through. A lot of people think that I do a lot of stuff on the computer, but I really don't. It's basically what I'm shooting out in the field. A lot of people describe my work as being ethereal or almost impressionistic-like, and that comes again from using the technique in the field. Make sure I'm getting the movement and stuff like that. That look. It's looking beyond the grasses. On our farm, we were surrounded by, a grove, and we have many trees, and we planted probably 200 trees in the last 2 years since we lived here. But we also have 8 acres of prairie, and we just enjoy looking at, because of the prairie, it's always changing. It's ever changing. the light and the wind. I mean, that's the essence of the prairie. Is the light and the wind. It's simple stuff, but it's beautiful stuff. If I was talking to young photographers, people are just kind of starting out, just be free. Don't get hyped up with gadgetry. I have basically one lens, which is a telephoto lens, and one body. So there have been times, of course, when I worked for the Denver Post, where I had 3 cameras hanging over my body with different size lenses and stuff like that. But for the type of stuff we have today, the type of equipment we have available to us today, we can get beyond that. I spent, I guess, 40-some years in the newspaper and magazine and freelance business. When I was a working journalist in those types of publications, it was always looking for the story and always trying to use photojournalism to tell a story. And now that I'm living here where Rebecca and I are living, I'm doing the same thing, except I'm doing it with a biome that's basically been totally altered, and so I'm trying to, I guess, tell that story in a way that would tell the story of an iron worker who's on the last few years of a way of life, because it's all changing. It's all different.
This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflections Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.